Have you recently come out of a breakup with somebody in a relationship dynamic who is very hot and cold? If that's the case, then they were probably the fearful avoidant attachment style, sometimes giving mixed messages, being push pull, and being quite indecisive about what to do for the future of the relationship. Now, after a breakup, there's something called no contact, where we decide to literally cut all contact with somebody that we've been recently seeing as a means of creating that space to see if they change their mind. And in fact, particularly with avoidant attachment styles, both fearful avoidant and dismissive avoidant attachment styles, this tends to be very productive. Now, in this video in particular, we're going to talk about what no contact is in more detail. We will talk about the different attachment styles and what they are, along with the fearful avoidant attachment style specifically, and exactly what the fearful avoidant experiences during no contact. Now, if you're new here, my name is Thais, and I put daily videos out here on YouTube. And we talk all about how to heal from your attachment style to become secure. We talk about how to transform painful relationship patterns. And we really talk about personal development and relationship development at the subconscious level of mind. So stay tuned and subscribe if you don't want to miss any daily videos. So first and foremost, no contact is essentially, pretty self-explanatory. It's a phase of time where you literally will not contact or have any type of contact with somebody who is your ex. And that's generally what it refers to. Yes, we can have no contact with family members who are unhealthy, with friendships that we know it's time to really take a break from or potentially end if it's also unhealthy. But it's most often discussed in the context of romantic partnerships. So when we take a look at no contact with the fearful avoidant, it's interesting because what we know about the fearful avoidant is they have the anxious side and they have the avoidant side. And generally, what you'll see with fearful avoidant attachment styles is when there's a lot of closeness, in fact, a little too much closeness for what a fearful avoidant can handle or feels comfortable handling, you'll see them push more into their avoidant side. So you'll see them like sort of retreat or go into their shell or avoid, or sometimes even like stonewall or ice somebody out. But when there's a lot of space, the fearful avoidant, when they have an attachment with somebody, like a bond built, they're more likely to actually push into their anxious side. And so no contact will often be something that affects fearful avoidance in a couple of crucial ways. We'll talk about four major ways. So one of the first things you'll see for fearful avoidance when somebody goes into contact with them is initially, very initially, they may experience some kind of relief or freedom. And this is initially, meaning this is often if, there was a really tumultuous relationship, the relationship wasn't working out, they felt engulfed or too enmeshed in the relationship dynamic. Often at first, fearful avoidance will experience a little bit of relief, but they generally have a period of time, like sort of this space in which this relief is meaningful to them. And that period of time is generally around 3 to 6 weeks. If somebody's leaning much more avoidance, sometimes it can be slightly longer. But we'll generally see for this first bout of time, the fearful avoidance are like, oh, I'm free, I'm on my own, I can do this. But what we will then see is that fearful avoidance, when they get out of that sort of avoidance side, they sort of get their fill of being on their own and having their needs for autonomy and independence met. There's a bit of a boomerang effect that tends to happen when somebody's truly no contact with them. And this is also because in that first initial few weeks, well, the fearful avoidant may feel like, okay, I'm in my, sort of space. I have my own time. I can do whatever I want now. And they might have this sort of concept of freedom. Often as well, they spend that period of time numbing because while they value freedom and autonomy, they also don't really love to be alone for too long. And so they may, on the other side of this, actually feel a little bit of discomfort or fear. And sometimes we'll see, like after a breakup, that a fearful avoidant will really get into their creature comforts. And what that means is they'll really get invested in things like, um, maybe drinking too much or numbing in a variety of different potential ways, distracting themselves too much, exercising way too much, like things that are coping mechanisms to kind of avoid themselves. So while this like initial lure of, oh, the freedom, I can do whatever I want, seems enticing and seems exciting, they may come to see over the next few weeks that, like I'm actually feeling a little bit lonely. I'm actually feeling really disconnected. I'm actually a little afraid to be on my own because fearful avoidance, usually an unhealed fearful avoidant has a lot of relationship building to do in the relationship to themselves, right? They don't usually love being alone with themselves. They can enjoy their alone time, but I want to be really clear here that alone time doesn't necessarily mean being alone with yourself, right? Alone time, if I'm just binge watching television or drinking, right? Like you're not with yourself. You're not like embodied. You're not present with yourself during that experience. And so alone time at a surface level is interesting, but being with yourself, understanding yourself, listening to your emotions, unpacking like what it is that you're looking for in life, processing your pain, introspecting, like all these different things are being with yourself. Numbing, watching television, going out all the time and partying or all these different things, that's not being with yourself.
So I have some really exciting news, and it's that integrated attachment theory training is back. So who is this for? Well, of course, this is for any individual who wants to make an impact and really be of service to others while also obtaining freedom and flexibility and abundance in their lives. And this is also for anybody who's already a counselor, a therapist, a coach, and just really wants to expand their toolkit. We've had so many people enter into the integrated attachment theory program because they're just looking to obtain a certain degree of mastery in terms of understanding their own attachment patterns and also the attachment patterns of maybe their children or partner or other loved ones in their lives, so they can really support those people and understand them more deeply. So if you're interested, click the link below to learn more and dive in with me. And I'd love to see you on the other side before seats run out.
And so with that being said, you'll see that that's really point number two, is after that initial sort of relief and freedom, we may actually see this kind of stage in no contact for fearful avoidance of ambivalence, where the fearful avoidant kind of becomes like, touch and go. They're enjoying their freedom, but then they sort of have this intermediary zone where they're like, I don't know, I kind of miss talking to my partner. I'm kind of interested in like, what could have been. And they may start to kind of ruminate or reflect on what led to the downfall of the relationship, potentially miss their partner. And again, I want to be really clear here. If you are an ex of a fearful avoidant, if you break no contact before this period of time, these things don't like onset essentially. So, the fearful avoidant, especially the way in which you break no contact, if it's like you break no contact and you're reaching out and you're really trying to make things work, those sorts of dynamics, not always the best situation. So that's the big point number two. Okay. Then we get to part three here of what the fearful avoidant tends to experience is after that initial, let's call it for simplicity's sake, roughly 6 weeks of the relief and then the ambivalence and the kind of wondering. Then we have the fearful avoidant kind of enter into the next stage of how they're affected by no contact, which is they tend to start missing the ex. They sort of have this like desire for reconnection. But I want to be really clear here again. It doesn't mean that a fearful avoidant is like ready to reconnect. It doesn't mean when I say desire for reconnection, they're thinking about it. They're much more rooted in that than they are rooted in the desire for freedom. However, I've seen this time and time again. If an ex reaches out to a fearful avoidant and is like, I miss you, we want to get back together, and they're that direct and they don't like leave time for things to kind of rebuild or for different discussions to happen, it will polarize the fearful avoidant back into their avoidance side. And so, when you're having this like desire for reconnection, they're interested in reconnecting, not necessarily getting right back into a relationship. And there's actually a really big difference. And so there's this phase around that time period where, and again, I'm going to be clear here as well about something. This doesn't mean all relationships, right? If there was a really terrible relationship, it didn't even last long. You never even really made it past the dating stage or honeymoon stage. It was toxic. Fearful ones may not be like interested in getting back together, but if there was like a really long-term meaningful relationship, this tends to be the cycle that they follow. And so then there will be this kind of like desire for reconnection, but if it's fed into too quickly, they'll polarize and run away. And so in this desire for reconnection space, even though fearful ones kind of value their space still, they're usually missing their ex and they're feeling their feelings about it. They're out of that like self-numbing stage. By the way, I will say really quickly too, if you are like any attachment style and you're trying to get back together with your ex, we have courses you can check out for free for 7 days for every single attachment style and their partner. So like FA with AP, FA with DA, and it's the course on reconnection, like how to do reconnection effectively. and the steps you need to take. And there's slides and notes and all this stuff in there for you. And it also, most importantly, helps you understand if it's worthwhile investing in, because sometimes an X is an X for a reason. So, it helps you identify like if it's healthy, what would need to change this time around, how to approach it in a healthy way, how to, understand no contact and all these different sort of dynamics that apply to each attachment style, the big points of healing for each attachment style together in the relationship, how to heal. Like it's very, very in depth. So again, I'll put the link to check those out for free for 7 days down below. And so then we hit the fourth stage. Okay. So we've got the freedom stage, and we have the kind of ambivalence stage, and we have the desire for reconnection stage. And then we have the rebonding stage if approached correctly, right? And this is the space that fearful avoidants are actually interested in, like really investing back in the relationship. It's not something where they're like, oh, I'm thinking about it, I'm ruminating about it, I'm questioning myself, I'm missing this person. It's like, no, they're actually taking action. And in this stage, it is super important for you, as the X, whether you're another fearful avoidant or any other attachment style, to do a few crucial things. Number one, you have to have a discussion about what wasn't working the first time around, and put some strategies and ideas together for like how we can do it differently. Because what we never want to see, what I never want to see, is people who are in an unhealthy relationship dynamic break apart and then get back together and just repeat the same patterns. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So there has to be actual discussion. And I know sometimes it can be scary to have these discussions, but it's of the utmost importance. Like, what wasn't working? What can we do differently? What were things we didn't realize were hurting each other? And how can we improve on those things? How can we be more validating of each other's feelings and perspectives, more sensitive to each other's needs? Take more action steps in terms of investing in the relationship more effectively. And this is where like we can actually rebond effectively. And believe it or not, fearful avoidance, they want to have these discussions. Like I know some attachment styles shy away a little bit more. Fearful avoidance are all about this kind of stuff, because they want that transparency, they want that depth, they want that openness. So these are really important discussions to have within that stage. So, I hope this made sense for you in terms of the major things that fearful avoidance will often feel during no contact, and some action steps for what you can do differently the next time around. Again, you can check out those reconnection courses for free for 7 days using the link down below, and literally type into your dashboard when you get into PDS, like whatever your attachment style is, and your X's, and you can type in like DA with AP or whatever it might be, and it will help you really get all the information you need and so much more. And if you're enjoying this channel, please consider subscribing, liking, sharing. It really helps the algorithm. I would super appreciate it. And if you have questions for me down below, please ask. I'm more than happy to make other video content based on your questions, your suggestions. I go back then in there, I take a look, I read through them, I extract the good ideas and make videos about them accordingly. So, anyways, I hope this is helpful for you. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I can't wait to see you in future videos.